Riches in the Hitches, an RV park investment podcast, takes you behind the scenes of the RV park industry where park owners, investors, and other industry professionals share their unique journeys, challenges, and triumphs. From transforming raw land into a thriving campground to navigating the ups and downs of managing guests, this podcast uncovers the untold stories of the people who make RV life possible and the strategies behind building a successful investment. Whether you're a park owner seeking insights, an aspiring investor exploring opportunities in outdoor hospitality, an RVer curious about life on the other side of the check-in desk, or just someone who loves hearing entrepreneurial stories, we are excited for you to join us as we find riches in the hitches.
Hey, welcome to Riches in the Hitches, a podcast where we go inside the RV industry and we bring the people who make the industry happen. And today we have Jon Wright from Yadkin Valley RV Resort, or formerly, or from this point forward, we'd love to refer to it as YVRV. Jon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bob.
Hey, thanks for taking the time out of here. You know, we've known each other for a while, and I'm really eager to share your story with the listeners because it's pretty fascinating. And we'll talk, some really cool details of how you ended up being an RV park developer without really trying or without setting out to that. So it's pretty cool. All right. But we are going to start our podcast with what we call the Quick Connect segment. I'm going to list off just 4 or 5 quick questions, and I want you to just zing them back. Basically the first word that comes to your mind in these questions. Okay. So the first question is, how did you find your park? On or off market?
Off market.
Off market deal. Okay. Awesome. What are the features of your park? How many acres?
A little over 20 acres, a little over 80 pads in phase 1 with room to expand later.
Awesome. All right. 20 acres, 80 pads, phase 1. So there's going to be a phase 2.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Another 40 to 48, something like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any other type of sites like tent, glamping, cabins, etc.?
Yeah, we have a nice creek along the backside, and we are going to be putting some tent camping down there.
Awesome. Okay.
And then probably a couple cabins as well.
Great. And then tell us about the amenities that you'll have.
So where this is located is fantastic. We have a county park right beside us. So there's a lot of amenities there. Inside of our park, we're going to have a nice amenity core with aquatic center. So pool, splash pad. Really going to have some opportunities for folks to come together and play. So fire pit, some setup. Cornhole, bouncing pillow. Really, it's a family oriented. If my kids want to be there, well, then that's what I want this to be.
Wow. So this sounds like this is kind of like a resort destination park with lots of cool activities for the family. And
that's right.
And you're leveraging. You said there's a big YMCA with a bunch of stuff next door. So you're leveraging someone else's property as an amenity core.
Yeah, running along the longest side of our park is the county park. The YMCA is right there as well. So it's got I didn't know Frisbee golf was such a big thing, but Frisbee golf is pretty big. And we have one of the best, I've been told by multiple people, we have one of the best Frisbee golf courses in North Carolina, right beside us. Sports fields, dog parks, walking trails, pool, there's the YMCA has their whole feature there, all of their offerings there as well. So it's a really nice, right beside us. It's almost like it's part of the park.
That's brilliant. That's something we can definitely dig into later. That's a smart move. Okay. What's the future of your park? Is this a development and sell for you? Forever park, buy and hold 5-10 years? You don't know, but what do you think the investment cycle is for you?
I mean, it's a tough question. I don't know what the future holds. I think for us, we set out for develop and hold. Okay. I think my kids talk about, often they're talking about how they're going to work in the front office or they're going to work here. They're going to be so. I mean, it's a family investment. So I think they'd be upset if I said anything other than that. But we'll see what the future holds.
That's awesome. Okay, and then obviously, where is it and what?
Right. So it's in the Piedmont of North Carolina. That's in the heart of North Carolina, right outside of Winston-Salem to the west, just north of Charlotte, in Yadkin County, inside of the town of Yadkinville, North Carolina. Booming metropolis. That is. Yadkinville, North Carolina.
Well, I've heard a lot about Yadkinville. I mean, no, not really, but it sounds like a beautiful place.
Yeah, we love it. We love it here.
Yeah, no, the pictures I've seen and done a little research, before this podcast, seems like a kind of like a foothills place. There's some winery industry there. It's right off of 75, is it not?
Right off of 77
77.
and then just north of 40. So yeah, there's interstate traffic right here. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the new wine country here. Yadkin Valley is meant to be a wine country, so it's
Wow.
counties around. So it's growing in notoriety. So um, great,
That's
great, great industry.
yeah, that's always a good market for the hospitality industry. Okay, so now we know about the park, right? Yadkin Valley RV Resort in Yadkin Valley, North Carolina. Development phase one, 80-ish sites, heavy amenity core, especially when you leverage the neighboring property. Jon, tell us about yourself. What can our listeners know about you?
Um, yeah, I'm a family man at heart, and we have we actually RV ourselves.
Nice.
We got into it back when we only had 4 kids. We have 8 kids now. We actually I was at
And
stationed
you
out
said you had eight? Did you say you
eight
had
kids
eight
now.
kids?
Yep, 8 kids now, and
Okay.
yeah, when we only had 4, and I was actually doing some TDY training out in Huachuca in Arizona. A couple of the church there took us in, didn't know us very well, but they let us borrow their camper, and we over 4th of July 4-day block, and we were hooked. A little
That's awesome.
23-footer with the 4 kids. My wife was pregnant with our fifth, um, and when we came back, we said we've got to get ourselves a camper, and we never knew that it would lead to eventually owning an RV park. But we love it. We love the what I like to call forced quality time, where
Horse
you
quality time.
have to disconnect. You are forced into a 30-foot travel trailer. Let's do what we have. I mean, we have all 10 of us plus a couple of friends in a 30-foot double slide travel trailer, and we absolutely love it. Well,
Man,
most of the time,
most of
I would say in hindsight, most of the bad fades away into all.
it's kind of like that selective memory.
That's right.
Camping has a way of making that selective memory. Yeah, I knew you had a lot of children. I guess I never realized you had eight. What's the ages?
So we have 20, 23 all the way down to eight, no, 24 all the way down to 8, I believe.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that brings a different meaning to family business.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Cool. All right. Well, great segue, right? You just shared with us how you became an RVer, which is pretty unique. Borrowing the church's camper. I haven't heard that one before. That's an awesome way to get kicked off. How did you end up you this this park, Yadkin Valley RV Resort? You are developing it, and I think the launch date is April timeframe. When's grand open? Okay.
Right here in the spring.
Yeah, so coming up soon, quick. How did you end up here? Like, did you set out thinking I'm going to build an RV park and found the perfect plot of land, or just tell us the story of how you ended up being an RV park developer?
Yeah, well, we didn't start out looking to be, an RV park developer. A couple of years ago, coming up on a couple of years, me and my wife had talked. There were some shifts in my day job, and been very blessed to be successful in my career. And so, me and my wife talked and said, look, while I have a little extra time now, I'm not having to work 60, 70 hours on a day
Yeah.
job right now. Well, what do we do? And we started to look for ways to invest, some of the savings that we've been entrusted with, and we started looking. I started looking for acquiring like cash flowing absentee businesses. Signed all sorts of NDAs and looked at all these write ups. Had put in a couple offers on existing businesses. SBA lending. There's a lot of opportunity there, and I
Yeah.
actually talked with a friend and sort of mentor, who said, Jon, I like to acquire real assets and not just goodwill. And that stuck in my mind. Came across a couple of RV parks for sale, and when I saw the P&Ls, I was very impressed. You
Okay.
have a real asset, um, and you have some pretty healthy margins compared to some of those other businesses I was looking at that were 20% was considered good. In some of those, but RV parks much broad, much healthier margins than that. So that's what got us set off on it. Project manager by trade, so I like building from scratch, creating something new. And we decided, let's find some land close. It's a great area, and I started looking. I started looking on the GIS, looking for plots of land that looked like what I'd want along a corridor. Wrote a handwritten letter to a couple of parcel owners, and one of them responded, and it happened to be this one. And so we ended up getting under contract. And I'll stop there because there's a whole lot more that comes after that. But how did I get into it? That's kind of how we stumbled upon it. And I certainly, there was a lot of prayer along the way. Yeah, actually, it was funny. I created an LLC knowing I'd acquire a business at some point in time, and I named it Pro 163 for Proverbs 16:3.
Okay.
Man heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. And indeed, our steps were guided to a place we didn't know that we'd end up. But very thankful to be here. Excited to get
for sure. Yeah. So there's an element of faith. I think that everyone has if you're becoming an entrepreneur, investor, owner, whether you want to acknowledge that or not. But that's pretty cool that you had that type of like deliberate faith, setting out on a journey and figuring out. I want to follow back up on that. Like that, sending that letter out to the parcel owner. So just as true off market. But speaking of faith, is this your first development, or did you develop some other property beforehand? Because developing a property is a big deal. Like it's not the easiest way to get into the space.
Yeah, no, it's not. But it's our first one. It's our first one. My dad told me when I was a boy, he would always say, "Look, if somebody else can do it, you can." I think into our second foreclosure flip, and I told my dad one time we were going to rewire something. He said, "Do we need to call an electrician?" And I said, "Dad, if somebody else can do it, we can do it." His eyes wide open. Somebody used to tell me that. So we are not. I've been taught to not be afraid to jump in. But no, it's our very first one, and so far so good. I've surrounded myself with a lot of folks that are a lot smarter and more experienced. That's the key to being successful in any way.
Those are great tips. So if someone else can do it, you can do it, and surround yourself with smart people.
Right? That's right.
But so we know that this is your first RV park development. Do you have any other real estate land development experience?
So when I reached out to this landowner for this property, he also owned two smaller adjoining parcels.
Okay.
And we had limited funds. We were going to buy it ourselves. We were going to go all in on our savings and needed to buy that 20 plus acres. And he responded back and said, "I'll sell it to you, but only if you buy these two smaller plots." And I said, "Have that." We went back and forth, ended up buying them. So I'm actually developing one of those adjoining parcels.
Okay.
And so I have two concurrent. They're both my first development, but they're two concurrent different developments. That's a whole other story for another day, but that I've learned a lot through that process. I just got CO yesterday on the final phase of that development. So that one's gone very, very, very well.
Can you share what type? Is that another park, or what type of property is that?
Yeah, it's a little 1.25 acre parcel that I had to figure out something to do with it, and it's actually like a flex industrial, like small bay flex industrial, multi-tenant. So we put 15,000 square foot up there and leasing those out, smaller units to local businesses. It really, so that's a whole other conversation. But that's been a
awesome
endeavor.
Jon, I'm a park owner as well, and we owned I think it was 12 parks, right? We bought 12 parks before we decided to build our very first development. So I got to hand it to you, man. that Proverbs quote, that's some real faith, because I know that process of developing is not for the faint of heart, especially for your first go. So you did it on your first try. It's I'm now 12 properties in before I'm building my first one. So I got to hand it to you. That's really cool.
Well, I can't say that there are some days that I go home thinking I'm crazy for doing it. There are those moments of weakness, but all in all, it's going well.
I'm sure the 8 kids remind you, how sane you actually are. Uh, yeah. All right, John. We talked about like how difficult it is to do a development. So you found you found the land, or you found an area. How did you get comfortable? Let me take a step back, right? As a park owner, when I go in and buy a typical park, I have something to look at. I've got P&Ls, I've got balance sheets, I've got probably years and years of financials, reservations, Google reviews. There's a lot of stuff that I get to look at from buying an existing park. You just said, "Hey, here's a great area. I'm going to build a park from scratch." There's nothing to look at. There's no predictive type of stuff. So how did you as a developer get comfortable with knowing this is the right thing to do in this area? Like, you probably don't know for sure yet, but how did you get confident enough to pull the trigger and say, I'm going to start building 80 sites here in Yadkin?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this area was, I'm familiar with the area. I
Right.
live 15, 20 minutes away. Uh, but what I had noticed is, for me, what keyed me onto it was all of everything that, a lot of you and your listeners know is that post-COVID boom. And there
Yeah.
were a couple parks that had opened up locally. Uh, there were have been doing very well. They were scheduling out for a year. Um, a year out.
Yeah.
So I knew that there was some white space in the market. I knew
Okay.
geographically, uh, you know, closer to me, there was some white space. So I started looking along that corridor uh, for a parcel that fit the bill, had the right topography, had
Right.
utilities, or did I early on I did utilities, or did I want to do septic? Of course, I opted for utilities if possible after running all those numbers. So and then I started validating some of my own assumptions and my own pro forma with
Okay.
was doing a lot of industry research. So in addition to looking at probably 8 different park P&Ls just out there in the market, just looking at what can I expect, building a very conservative pro forma, I started to look at RVIA.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other one out there? Uh,
Arvig.
Arvik as well. Got their
Yeah.
reports. I carry them around for 50-page reports for a while. Really flipped through them. I got reports from pre-COVID, so I was
Okay.
fine tuning my performer there. So I felt like there was white space in the market. There was This is what I could expect to make. Then I started to quantify the development costs, and of course, your piece of land is critical.
Yeah.
This is a vertical development primarily.
Yeah.
So prepping, or sorry, horizontal development primarily.
Right.
So you're a lot of land moving. So I looked for a piece of land that didn't require that, had utilities,
Okay.
had a lot of ground already cleared. Um, and then I started to get some general contractor quotes.
Yeah.
So I knew what this would cost, and I just ran the numbers because I knew there was white space. I knew this was
Yeah.
a nice area that there was demand for here in wine country. We talked
Yeah.
about this area later, but those were all the pieces I started to put together, and then yeah, so that's how I narrowed it down to this piece of land. Now, after I locked the land in, I realized that the land was a no lose situation. But
Yeah.
that's a conversation maybe for a little later. But that's how I
Sure.
narrowed it down. And to be honest, you can tell from my answer, I'm not all that sophisticated. I mean, in a couple of conversations that we've had before, y'all have it dialed in. And I wish I could give you a better answer, but I don't. There was still a lot of faith involved, but I was seeking wisdom and the counsel of many,
Yeah.
and some industry leaders, some contractors to confirm that this was a piece of land that was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that answer, and thank you for sharing, because your perspective is really, really important. Like, there's everyone has their first deal. There's no one who starts out in this industry at their fifth or sixth deal, and and that's where that's one of my missions and calling is to try to help people, like help them get started, help them get going. 3 or 4 years from now, you're not going to need anyone's help, or you're going to be the guy on the podcast and helping others. So that perspective is really important, and that's why I always ask, like, what made you comfortable to pull the trigger? Because action is critical. Like, you can't be a successful business or RV park without starting. And it's, thank you for sharing. I think that's a good bit of motivation for everyone, to not to have it all figured out. You thought about it, you were prepared, you researched, You set some baselines. I want public utilities. I want it in this area. I think your decision to build your first park in an area that you've lived and worked in and knew was really, really smart. Um, I see, there's a lot of dangers and risk in development, but I assume you probably have a network of people there. You knew the market, you knew the area, you felt it. I mean, are you able to visit the park pretty regularly and stay checked in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
We go by probably more than we need to, just because it is. Me and my
yeah,
wife will. The kids, they'll jump in, and now they're like, I don't want to go anymore. We've seen it too much. But me and my
yeah.
wife, all right, let's go get a meal, and we'll swing by to take a look at it. And,
Yeah. So would you probably, I mean, I guess
close.
my advice, and maybe you can agree or disagree, my advice is that whether you're purchasing your first park that is operational or certainly doing your first development, I would highly recommend finding something that's within a reasonable driving distance to where you live and work. An hour, 2 hours. Being able to just physically be there, see it, and feel it, I think is pretty critical on your first deal.
And I think absolutely agree. And then I think all the work I did for the 9 months before I got this one in, with
Yeah,
kicking the tires on multiple businesses, submitting LOIs, backing out of deals, and that iterative process, you're learning something. So
right.
it wasn't RV park. By the time I got in here, I had gone through that. I gotten comfortable, and I think the other advice that I would have is be fully committed to every deal that you are assessing, but
Yeah.
also be fully ready to always walk away. So
Okay.
that would be my advice, because there was some time, and I think for my wife, she was, we'd have this conversation. I'd be fully committed, but then I'd start talking about all the reasons why it wouldn't work. Right. So after
Hmm.
you lock it in, now you go into high scrutiny. No,
Yeah.
this isn't gonna work. This isn't. She's like,
Yeah.
where are you at? You're this emotional roller coaster for you, John. And it's like, no, my advice would be fully committed to the deal, kick the tires, but also be fully ready to walk away. And um in that regard, lock the deal in such a way that it gives you an inspection period.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask for a long enough inspection period so you can have people come in and give you their opinion, bring in the experts.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
For this development for you, how long, if you're willing to share, what were the terms? Like, how long was the inspection term? How long was the inspection, period? Then after that, how long did you have to close? And then, like, what was the percentage of the purchase price that you had to put down for an EMD? Not a dollar amount, just like a percent.
Yeah, I mean, again, mine was off market, so it's a little bit different than what you might find
Yeah.
on market deal. But we had 90-day inspection period.
Okay.
Um, we actually structured it and this is critical for later. We actually structured it as an option contract,
Okay.
option purchase. 90-day inspection period, 30-day close. Money went hard at the end of the first 90 days. I think we extended it once, so we extended the inspection period, but I had to double my money down after that first 90 days.
Yeah.
Then the seller kind of got tired of that, understandably so. 150
Sure.
days, half a year almost. Um,
Yeah.
and then from a down payment, from an earnest money standpoint, I think we were at, it was pretty small. It was like 5% down.
Okay.
And he actually also offered seller financing at the time, which I knew wouldn't work once I went to go get development funds, but
Right.
it bought me some time. So
Sure.
we had structured it to do seller financing, but we'll get to that later on how I ended up structuring it, and maybe you'll want to get into that later. And
Yeah, well, let's jump into it now because I think that's a big part. So you bought it. So you bought just the land with owner financing, and then it sounds like then you did probably some development work and then went and refinanced it. How did that work?
so when we had structured the option, he had given me the option to owner finance. In that
Okay.
90-day inspection period, a couple of things started happening, and one of the my goal when I wrote the letter was, to him, what I want to develop this in an RV park. We
Yeah.
love Yadkin County. We want to share our love for it and its beauty with other families. That was what I wrote into it. That's the truth.
Yeah.
But I also was open to exits at every step along the way. I think that's actually how we initially got connected through a Facebook group.
Okay.
I had put out there land nearly shovel ready. It wasn't fully entitled yet. But so I was always open for the exit. And what I started to notice is that even before I bought it, so I had the option.
Yeah.
Before I bought it, I had gotten a really good deal. And so I started to talk with some other individuals, and me and my wife could go all in on this, but it is all in. So we decided to bring in a couple of partners on the deal who are local, and ended up bringing in three partners who have contracting engineering background,
Okay.
general contracting, and so that really lightened the burden for us as a family.
So, yeah.
And so,
Yeah. So these partners that you, oh, sorry.
sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah. So these partners you have, they're not like, you didn't do it like a syndication or something. These are active partners. They're contributing to the, more than just a dollar investment. They have some time and talent.
They do, absolutely, and I think it's important. You can syndicate, you can get capital that way, but here, I was looking for individuals that
Okay.
has bring to it, because it's my first development. I want somebody
Right.
there that really take. I was trying to mitigate some of the risk, not only for us financially, but also from a development standpoint.
That's
So
smart.
it went from I was going to owner finance to, in that 90 days, as I'm doing geotech, I'm waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning, like, oh, I forgot about this or anything like that. I'm also, again, having conversations such that it led to this point where I brought these partners in, and it was really a rather informal sort. I mean, we did document it in a partnership agreement, but I mean, it was the sort of thing where you don't see these days where, four guys are standing at the entrance of the property. We're having conversation about the final numbers, what the partnership looks like, and we shake hands, and that's it. And then we say a prayer
Nice.
over the future park, and that's it. Like that was, after that, it was all formal documentation. It was set in stone with the handshakes.
Great.
So, been great partners. But that's how I went from owner financing to now cash, and that was critical because now I sold part of the option to them. Is how we ended up structuring that. The lawyers and the CPAs got involved.
Okay.
So that's where that option component really came in handy there. And so we ended up not having to do owner financing for the purchase of the land. Now we still had to source the funds to develop.
Okay.
That's how it was initially structured.
Can you share, like, so the sources, you bought it with partners, basically bought it in cash, right? Pulled the four of you guys cash there. No debt at this point. You got the raw land, no debt. You've got to build out this park, right? So the land's probably relatively cheap. What do you know off the top of your head, like the percentage, your total project cost, how much the land is that like 10%, 20% of your total project cost?
Yeah, it's somewhere right in there between 10 and 20. And a critical element there was that we actually ended up getting an appraisal. So we ended up paying for separate appraisal, got an RV park appraiser. And we actually, during that process, when I brought them in, we hadn't fully entitled the land. We had to get it rezoned, and we had to get it a major special use permit issued.
Right.
But I had a lot of those initial conversations was that the town was very excited about this deal. So I'm pivoting back for a second to that conversation because that was critical as well. And talking about, is this the right piece? When I talked to the county, the county was just take it or leave it, which was very strange to me because the county's motto was come for a day, stay for a lifetime. They're wanting to get people to come into this place, fall in love with it, and stay. I'm thinking, what better business model in a rural community than an RV park to bring folks out of Charlotte, Winston, come here, fall in love with the place, come and buy land like my family did. We came out of Winston, we bought land out here, we built the house. What better way to do it? But the town was very excited. So we ended up annexing into the town. So I knew that. But we did that after we bought the project. We were so sure that the town was going to, wanted this. Talk with the town manager, the commissioners, the mayor. Very excited about this. We bought it. A couple months later, we annexed, rezoned, and special use permit were all issued in one town hearing, commissioner meeting. So that was critical. And then once we had that, we got the appraisal that then showed us the value of the land as it is permitted, value of the land as improved, and then as stable. And that was a critical component thing going to be able to be able to finance.
Yeah. So, Jon, what you just described is really important for listeners to understand. For, someone who has never developed a property, like, they think the word development means like when you're actually building things, right? That's construction. Development is that time frame that you're getting the entitlements, you're getting the permitting, you're getting the engineering, and really nothing is happening to the land. It's sitting there growing weeds and trees, and there's zero change in the land. But that development work that you did by getting it annexed into the city, by getting the entitlements ready to go, that added a significant, I assume probably added a significant value from the raw land to development land, right? Any like was it like, I don't know,
Doubled, more than
doubled?
doubled.
Yeah.
Yeah, appraisal standpoint. Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
hadn't moved a tree, you hadn't
It was
brought
all
up
paper. It's all
all
paper.
paper. Yeah. So I think I do remember, when you were in that process, and then I think that's when you maybe went out to the market just to see if anyone was willing to buy. Now it was raw land plus work plus development, right? Development complete. And then, okay, so then you get appraised. You've basically doubled the value of this piece of property. Did that, I mean, obviously had some time, but what was an expense that you had into that development
Yeah, I mean,
process?
yeah, I mean that's another thing. You got to. I mean, I would say between geotech, engineering costs, even before I bought the land, back before I had partners, I probably dropped 20 grand.
Okay.
Maybe a little more than that. And then after that, you got some more, but the majority of the costs were spent. You got to be ready to spend money, and still, like I said earlier, having spent the money, counted as sunk cost, don't
Yep.
allow it to affect your decisions going forward, and be able to be willing to walk away. But
Yep.
we didn't have to. But the majority of our upfront costs prior to breaking ground were prior to because by that time the engineer become a partner. So
Yeah.
now
Right.
now that was
Okay.
getting that skill set
Yeah.
involved. So that was
Yeah.
that
So
was
one of your partners is an engineer, right? So that probably helped you be much more efficient.
and I think and what's great about him is that he's an engineer,
Yeah.
but he's not a consumer. He's not an RVer. I'm the only RVer in
Yeah.
the group, so I'm constantly articulating, the customer perspective. But I'm trying
Right.
my best. They'll probably laugh at me. I'm trying my best to back out of of the the tactical. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to advise from a consumer standpoint.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How
all that
important do you think it
happened.
is?
Yeah, I mean, all that happened, prior, to get entitled, and now suddenly you double the value, and
Okay.
now financing becomes easier because they have an appraisal cost of the land. Um,
Yeah. So now you've got, double the value of the land. Then did you go to like a traditional bank and get a construction loan, or what's the structure of your construction, your construction debt?
when it was just me, I was looking heavily at SBA.
Okay.
A lot of SBA land. You've got to find some vendors that have some, or some banks that have some that come to mind, but that are understand this type of asset. A lot of them put
Right.
it in hospitality alongside of hotels. While it is hospitality, it's very different
Yep.
than hotels. But a lot of them just put it in that category and walk away. So we were looking at SBA. I was looking at SBA heavily.
Okay.
When I brought the partners in, that opened up a whole bunch of other doors from their contacts, and we ended up, being able to finance this with private loan,
Okay.
directly with an individual.
So you do have debt.
Mhm.
It's just not bank debt, right? So this is someone that said, "Hey, I'm lending you money. It's debt, but it's just not through a bank, private debt."
Correct.
Okay. And I assume that was probably, probably a lot easier as far as like underwriting stuff, but maybe more expensive.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier from underwriting. You didn't have to have
Yeah.
four partners pull their PFS and upload all that, go through that
Yeah.
conversation. Um, really, the appraisal did it for us. Hey,
Okay.
here's what the land really is worth. And showing the performa, showing the industry, everything that I had this beautiful packet put together by now,
Yeah.
on underpinning the whole, proposal, the performa underpinning
Right.
was showing that it was more conservative than it ought to be, putting in it was going to do well even in a stressed
Yeah.
scenario. So yeah, but yeah, and then finally, really it was just going to a lawyer and signing the paper.
Yeah.
That's it. It was pretty
That's
simple.
that's one of the things that we teach, in our RV university is for someone starting out, right, getting someone to understand that a bank or a lender, whether it's a traditional bank or a private lender, you're now making a big fundamental shift in that they are looking at and understanding the business itself, the model, the real estate. It's not about what you make anymore from a paycheck. It's not about what your credit score is, although those do matter and they should matter. Um, but your lender doesn't care, what your salary is, right? They care about that appraisal, what your business plan is, what it's going to be, and the asset that underlies it. And so that's a really powerful leverage point. If back when I was flipping houses, um, if I wanted to go get a bank loan on a regular single family house, it was based off of my credit and my income, and the appraised value of the house. As soon as we started buying commercial real estate, and I remember my first closing. We bought a 60 unit apartment complex. This is like millions of dollars, and I'm going from buying a $200,000 house to flipping it, and I'm going to a multi-million-dollar closing. And I sat down at the closing table, and there's like 11 pieces of paper, and I'm thinking, crap, crap. The this deal is dead. They're getting ready to tell me that they're no. It was just much simpler, right? The lender cared about the asset. They wanted to leverage on the asset. They didn't care about all my, I think when I did my VA loan for my house, it was like quite literally like two stacks, like 400 pages of closing documents. And that 4 weeks later, I'm showing up to this multi-million-dollar apartment complex closing deal, and there's 11 pieces of paper I had to sign. That was an epiphany for me.
In your experience, is that process, or in that apartment complex, or in other RV parks, is there a personal guarantee component to, do you see that very often, or is it really, you know, and does that differ between new development and, acquiring a
Yeah.
stable asset?
Yeah, it does. I see the personal guarantee stuff is much more common and required in the RV industry than it is from the MH or apartment complex industry, simply because, typically, a lot of your larger institutional lenders like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, CMBS type loans that you can get on a mobile home community or apartment complex community, um, those are well established, lending facilities a semi quasi governmental level, and so they don't have, they're not, they don't generally don't require personal guarantees, whereas that those type of lending products don't exist for RV parks yet. That's one of the things I'm working on and pushing towards. And so that means your lender is either a local or regional bank or a private investor, and so there's a lot more discretion there. And as you guys know, like when you go buy a house, like typically they're going to want you to have a personal guarantee. So do I have loans from a bank on an RV park that don't have personal guarantees? Yes, but I would say that it's probably more of like a 60-40 split. Um, and so yes, they still, they're going to ask for a personal guarantee. If I'm a banker, why wouldn't I ask? Like, I might as well ask and see if you're going to do it. Um, but it is a negotiating point. It's not always yes, you have to do this. Right? When you're working with a bank or lender in the commercial world, buying a, commercial property, which is what an RV park is, it's important to remember that the rules, there's some flexibility on our side. You're shopping just like you go shop for a new car. Like there's some negotiating points that you can work in there. And that's one of the big ones you want to really know and understand.
Great. Appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Okay. So you got the funds. You guys are in the process of building it now. I think you've got an engineer on your team that you partner with, which is brilliant. I think you've got a construction guy that you're partner with. That's, part of the ownership. So they're aligned. They're trying to keep it, on cost and as cheap as possible. So that's really smart move on your part. Um, all right. So it's going to be built, hopefully ready to launch here in, I think, April timeframe. Is that right?
Yep. Here in the spring, we'll open. We'll still be working on some of our amenities,
Okay.
but we will be, open
Yeah.
to for the initial reservations there in the spring.
Okay. So let's talk about then now the journey, well, that was, thank you for sharing the construction process. That's really important. But now we're getting to the point, or you're getting to the point where it's like, okay, now I've got something built. Who's running it? What am I going to do? So what have you figured out, and how did you get to that process? Like, how are you going to run this thing?
Early on, I knew that I am not the best person to run this park.
Okay.
Um, And that's to say, I've seen some owner operator parks do very well. One that's very close, I mean, very close to us has done very well, but that's just not, I have other things that I need to do, and I'm not the best guy to do it. So I knew I wanted to bring in a management company.
Yeah.
And that was one of the early steps I was taking, is talking with management companies. And again, having lots of different conversations. It really went through almost back to my W-2 job, almost walking through like an RFP type process, having clear criteria of what we wanted in a management company, outlined, had that that sort of checklist, and then we had conversations, and we rated the different management companies. It was, and there are a fair amount of them out there. So having those conversations, most of them were very pleasant to talk with. Some were more organized than others, and I look for organization. But that's what we did. I knew I'd have to do it. I knew I didn't want for us to manage it. We talked about hiring an individual, but I don't like points of failure. So I'm looking for a management company that if any one person backs out, there's a commitment that that single point of failure will be covered until a replacement can be installed.
Okay. So you, like, I assume you probably were weighing maybe 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, build it, run it yourself, right? Be on site, you're running it, owner operated. Sounds like you considered scenario 2, build it, hire staff, but directly to you, right? So that's I would call maybe an owner managed type of thing, where you're running a business, which it is. And then scenario 3 is hire a third party management service that basically is doing everything, and you're just oversight of the management company. Is that the 3 options you had?
Yes, those are 3 options. We rolled out number 1 pretty quick. Number 2, still rather involved. I mean, it's like semi-absentee, but if something fails, it's back on you. So that's why I opted for 3, because I can be a single point of failure as well.
And then you went out to market, shopped. How did you go? How did you search? Like, was it just a simple Google search? How did you start finding who's out there?
Google. I asked some Facebook groups as well. What's the management companies? So that's how I sourced. I reached out, and I would say a good number of them I reached out to, and I'll reach out twice. If I don't get a response back on the second one, that's pretty good indicator to me of how you're handling customers, especially when I'm trying to pay you. So that's it. So I mean, I would say half of them were ruled out because they never responded. They may be great groups, but checking the voicemail or email, just didn't think it was important to respond. Maybe didn't think I was a big enough fish to care about it. So
Gotcha.
So and that's how I got the initial ones.
Well, that's a great segue, because I was going to ask, we could ask the question 2 different ways. 1, what was your criteria, what you're looking for? Or maybe 2, an easier way to think about it is what, if someone else is looking for a management company, what questions should they be asking?
Right. For me, and I would recommend to others, look for a management company, like focus on goal alignment. That's important. So a company that does better when you do better. Now, and I say that from a perspective of, a lot of these management companies will just be a percent of gross. So for every dollar that comes in, they get a cut off of it. But I want to really incentivize the margin as well, and EBITDA. So was a company willing to go, and part of their incentive be based upon the annual revenue, and how do you structure that? So some were, I would say only 1 came out the gate with that, but a couple were open to that sort of structure. So that goal alignment is critical. I think there are a couple ways to assess how they're going to treat your customers pretty early on. Like the example I gave, call twice, they don't call back, that's it. But the openness, the heart of a teacher, I'm looking for somebody that's willing to teach and is willing to spend time with me to answer my dumb questions. Because if they're not willing to spend time or get irritated at my dumb questions, and believe me, I ask a fair amount of them, and they're going to, then that's going to trickle down to the staff that they hire and the tone that they're going to have with customers. They can have all their marketing stuff on their website that they want to. They don't have that tone with me. Life they're not going to have with my customers. I think stability as well. We're not, I think, how long have they been around? Do they have similar sites? Are they, doing some site visits? I did a couple site visits whenever my family was traveling. Was also important as well when you start to narrow it down.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, those are really good, things that people should be thinking about and checklists, I guess, things that you need to tick off as you're going and shopping and doing it. So okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and
So
additional goal alignment is vision, guiding principles, values. Those are really not only
yeah,
are they all on a website, but you get it and do those values across the conversation. So in addition to financial alignment, I should say also
yeah.
value
Yeah, so that fee structure that you wanted and I think ended up with, or no, you ended up with is, there's a percent of the gross revenue that gets paid to the property management company. And then, there's a target NOI or EBITDA,
alignment.
and for the budget for the year.
Mhm.
And if the property performs above that EBITDA, then that management company also gets part of that extra on top of the gross revenue, right?
That's right. That's right. And we both have to mutually agree upon that annual NOI target. So I can't set something absent, that budget cycle where we both agree to it. And then the
Right.
other one, and then the other lever I like to look for, I should have said this earlier, is I want the management company to have the marketing lever. I want them to own the marketing.
Okay.
And some of these companies would say, no, we don't do marketing. Well, that was a pretty early X off,
Yeah.
because that's a pretty critical lever for that management company to. And talking about goal alignment, they need to be able to fine tune the marketing as best they see fit to ensure they maximize their value, which is
Yeah.
our value.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, RV Park it's a business, right? You got to have customers.
Hmm.
It's not a mobile home community where, yeah, you have to recruit and there's marketing to get a tenant, but that tenant's in there for a year, 2, 3, 5, hopefully 10 years, right? Your your RV businesses, you're fighting every day to get that new customer to come in. Um, so it's a big shift. Marketing is very critical. Okay, shameless plug, right? Um, I'm very thankful and blessed that you chose our management company to manage it. So Unhitched Property Management. Um, Thank you, Jon, for choosing that. It's been a pleasure to work with you thus far. So obviously I have some inside knowledge of how this worked. So thanks for playing along there. But yeah, I'll offer up myself a shameless plug. Why did you choose us?
Um, you know, you for the same reasons. I mean, you never got irritated with my questions. You were your staff, and I'm sure I asked a fair amount of, ones that are like, does this guy not know what he's talking about? No, I don't. And you're willing to educate. So
Yeah.
I appreciated that. The willingness to goal align was great. I think the Unhitched brand, right, and the idea aligns very closely to what we want, which is a place for families to come back time and time again, make friends, disconnect from the busyness of life, have this
Yeah.
home away from home sort of feel. That's important. So those really resonated. And I say, a fair amount of this is, as you said early on, it's faith, it's gut, it's reflection, and um,
Yeah.
we pivoted at the last minute, really, from
Yeah.
company we had settled on, and we were not fully there to, and within a few conversations, we were really starting to feel like it was
Awesome.
locked.
That means a lot. Thank you. It's great feedback. Okay, that's a good segue. Let's wrap this up. We've got, we do three questions here that we want to know from you to the listener. Our first question is, how do you disconnect to reconnect? So our brand Unhitched, the motto here is disconnect to reconnect. And for us, like, it might mean something to you, different to you, but for us, it's this idea of why we love camping. It's you you're putting down the phones, you're putting down the TVs, you're putting down the gaming systems, and you're disconnecting from all the things that can pull us apart as humanity or as a relationship, and we're reconnecting to the things that are really important, right? Your relationships with each other, with your family, with your spouse, and into to God, right? To His creation. Those are the things that are critical that we as a company strive to do. So that's our definition of disconnect to reconnect. What is it that you do, either as a individual, person, family, that you do to kind of disconnect and then reconnect to those important things in life?
Um, I, I would say that I'm not always the best at it, but one of the things that we do as a family is, like I said early on, RVing was our way
Okay.
of disconnecting all of us from the various components and things, areas we were at in life, squeezing us into the camper and reconnecting, during that time. Um, and there were some years where we went, once a month, camping. I mean, it was just what we did. I think those formative years
Yeah.
for our older kids, that was an important time. So that's I mean, RVing has become, very, very at the core of who we are as a family. And so that's how we disconnect to then reconnect. I would say, I love to connect with creation. Um, we moved out here and we have land now. We have some elbow room. We love to
Yeah.
hunt. So take the kids out, go hunting, enjoy the land that we've been entrusted with. And now the land out here 15, 20 minutes away that we get to drive to and enjoy out there as well. So working the land, ourselves, that we have construction folks out there still being out there as a family working on that's important. We're out there working together, developing the land to prosper. Not I enforce for my kids. We're doing this not only for, I'm not doing it just for you. You're doing it for your kids, right?
Right.
We're building a legacy, and so connecting with that to work the land together and then connect, that we have a shared goal. Me and my
Yeah.
son, me and
Yeah.
my daughter, we have a shared goal for the next generation, and the generation after that is a key element that I'm trying to emphasize. That we're building a legacy together.
That's
I'm not building a legacy for you to go and spend. I'm building a legacy I want to entrust it.
man. So that's, I mean, you're teaching so much there. It's such a big impact, and really it's a gift for them, to learn that from you. All right. Next question. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's your why?
Um, yeah, I hate to. I mean, it's my family.
Yeah.
That's why I get out of bed. I think before I had a family, I was a pretty easygoing guy. I didn't work. I mean, I guess I was driven, but man, when you have a family, everything means so much more. And that's the why. As you can tell, my faith is important. There's a reality outside of me.
Yeah.
Being a former intelligence officer, I recognize that the terrain exists outside of me, and I have to work with the terrain. In the same way, I can want reality to work in a certain way, but
Yeah.
it's not. I have to navigate that terrain, and there's that creation. There's a creator who's designed the place. So that, I think, gets me excited. Understanding how the world works, how it's engineered, and being able to navigate successfully through it to an end that's set for me. I don't set my own end. Gets me out of bed in the morning. And I'll tell you as well, talk about getting out of bed. I used to not be able to get out of bed in the morning because I dreaded the day full of calendars that I had in my day job. Now I can't wait now I can't sleep at night, because not because I'm dreading the calendar invites, because I can't wait to get up and see what's going on out there, with what
Man.
we're building, and swing out there before the sun's up, come back, do my day job, and go up there after work's done, and see what's been done in that 9-10 hour period.
That's inspiring. I mean, that's good stuff, like that's how you're doing the right thing. You're in God's purpose, like when you're ready to go in the morning and it's not a dread. Cool. All right. Last question. How can the listeners connect with you? What do you want them to know? Whatever you want to share.
Yeah, yvrv.com, Yadkin Valley RV Resort.com. Jump out there, get engaged, find our Facebook page, follow us. Give us your thoughts, right? As you see, we have pictures out there of how the development's coming along.
Yeah.
Take a look at it. Give us feedback. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what amenities might work for you, what you or your family might enjoy. But certainly follow us. And we'd welcome your feedback. Share. If you know folks in the area, share it. We'll be opening up here in the spring, so we'd love to have you or folks come on out and enjoy it with us. So Yadkinville, Yadkin County is a very special place to us. I grew up a county away, and when we looked to find land, we kept coming back to this county. This is beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful county. Which the terrain is beautiful. The wine country, the foothills here, Yadkin River, um, the people. Um, it's just a special place for us. We um, would love to share with others.
It's going to be a great place. I'm very excited. I'll be up there just in a couple of weeks. We'll spend some time, again, walking the site and developing, exploring the area. Definitely a place we're going to come, as a family, because we RV as well, up there and spend some time. We're going to wait till the pool's built to bring the
That's
bring
right.
the
That's
family,
right.
but pretty amazing pool coming. Thank you, Jon. Thank you for being our first guest on Riches and the Hitches, and thank you for being one of those that make RVing and camping happen for the rest of us. We'll drop some show notes in here with all the links and contacts for Jon and yv@rv.com, as well as on Hitch. So thank you, listeners. We will talk to you soon.